Since the storm, it seems like everybody just moved on. In America, especially during disaster, black children are not even a thought.
Have you ever talked about this before?
No, I haven't.
Why you think?
I don't know. Nobody didn't really ask me.
They want people to think, oh no, everything is okay. These people are good, like they're strong. Look at how much they've overcome. It's for me to say when I'm resilient. It's for me to say what is resilient. It's not for you.
And that was a clip from HBO Max documentary Katrina Babies. It's a powerful look at how Hurricane Katrina impacted the children of New Orleans.
The man behind the documentary is here with us this morning. We welcome filmmaker Edward Buckles. Thanks for being with us, Edward. Katrina Babies is so powerful, and this is really unique because it focuses on the youth and what the youth went through 20 years ago. Why was it important for you to tell those stories through the lens of the youth?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Well, I was 13 years old during Hurricane Katrina, so it's the only story that I know. It's the first story that I know. Being uprooted at 13 and then having to grow up in a post-Katrina New Orleans, and then later becoming an artist, it was one of the most polarizing stories, and just one that I had to get out. And also, I just think that in order to truly rebuild the city of New Orleans, we have to pour into the youth and make sure that they are okay and that they are healing from Hurricane Katrina.
You said it well earlier, that resilience is your story to tell. And a lot of people have admired the strength of the children after the storm and in the years since. But, you mentioned you are a Katrina baby. You lived this. 2 decades later, what do you still hold on to about what happened in New Orleans?
Yeah, something that I hold on to a lot is the fact that we helped ourselves through this, right? 20 years later, the Black community of New Orleans, we're still rebuilding, we're still healing, and, most of it is falling on our shoulders, right? And that speaks to the actual, resilience that we have. But I think that also, it speaks to this larger, issue that's happening, where most of the weight of trauma falls on our shoulders, even with a American tragedy such as Hurricane Katrina. So, I'm hoping that 20 years later, we know that that was not that long ago, and we are still trying to put things in place to heal from that storm.
That's right. And you talk about trauma. We recently had those wildfires here, Edward, that hit a predominantly black community in Southern California, Altadena. So what advice can you impart from what you learned from doing this documentary to some of the youth in this community?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to send prayers to all, impacted by the fires. And I think that Hurricane Katrina foreshadowed a lot of what's happening with climate change and climate injustice and climate racism. And, one thing that I can, just say is that make sure that we are speaking to the kids, who were impacted by these fires. Make sure that we are making sure that they're okay and that they are, definitely just healing from their trauma for sure.
Right, there's the financial toll, there's the structural toll, but then there's also the emotional toll that people have to go through in the wake of disasters like this. So as people around the world are talking about Hurricane Katrina today, still can't believe it's been 20 years, but what do you want people to remember about what happened?
I think that what I want people to remember about what happened with Hurricane Katrina is that, it happened to a really, really vulnerable community. It happened to a community that, in a way was, insecure to a tragedy like this. And I think that 20 years later, during these 20 years, we've seen it happen over and over and over again all across the world. So I'm hoping that we can take a look back at New Orleans and what happened during Hurricane Katrina, and we can learn from that so that we can, address what's happening with fires, what's happening with earthquakes, what's happening with, school shootings, what's happening with all of these tragedies that we are dealing with in America, and we can really address them properly, specifically for the children and, for the future of this nation.
I'm thinking, you're 13 at the time and just old enough to really know what was going on. Young, but to know what was going on. What 20 years later, I know there's so much that happened there, so much devastation, destruction, but what really stuck with you when you look back at that time?
Yeah, I think that what really, stuck with me is being 13 years old and learning very early on that, Hurricane Katrina was not just a natural disaster, but it was something that, really like relied on resource allocation and racism. I learned that at very, very young age. We all remember when Kanye West got on the, telethon and, said that George Bush doesn't care about black people. And, we heard echoes of that, just pretty much throughout the entire process. So at 13 years old, I was exposed to pretty much like losing my innocence to thinking that, America had my back, right? Yeah. So I've spent, the past 20 years grappling with that. And, I think that that's what definitely powered me to make my documentary, Katrina Babies, at just 20 years old.
It is just beautifully done, by the way, Edward. So congrats on this documentary. And it will resonate with a lot of people who watch it, and really important story to tell. We thank you so much.
Thank you, Edward. HBO original, Katrina Babies. Check it out.